Cersei Lannister woke to the soft, poisonous hush of pre-dawn. No cock crowed in the red keep at this hour, for even the birds had learned to stay silent when the queen's temper could wake before the sun. Shadows licked the walls of her chamber, thin, quivering tongues cast by a single lantern guttering on a low table. She lay upon a coverlet of crimson silk, its threads heavy with Lannister lions that glimmered faintly in the half-light, and for a long moment she let the stillness press against her ribs like mailed fists. The cell she had endured beneath the September of Baelor was gone now, replaced by the familiar scent of myrrh and spiced wine, yet some part of it clung to her skin like lime dust. Even after a week at liberty, she sometimes woke convinced she was still on cold straw, waiting for a jailer's torch and the scrape of a door, for Septa Unella's rasping voice demanding repentance. Repentance. The word curdled in her mouth. She rose without ringing for her maids. They slept in the adjoining alcove, wrapped in dreams free of shame, free of threat. Let them rest, Cersei thought. They were dolls to be dressed and posed when the time came. She slid naked from the bed, crossing the chamber barefoot, and poured a measure of wine into a chased gold cup. Even watered, it tasted of iron and summer plums, and when she swallowed, warmth bloomed low in her belly. Outside the narrow balustrade windows, King's Landing dozed beneath a slate-blue sky, the streets still dark between shuttered lanterns. A hush lay over the city, as if the bricks themselves held their breath. They know the queen moves today, she thought. They feel the trembling of scales about to tilt. On the table near the latticework screen lay a folded parchment, its seal broken and blood-red wax spread like a wound. The High Sparrow's hand had penned it, an invitation, he'd called it, cloaked in the smug gravity of Holy Writ, an offer of mercy. Face the faith beneath the gaze of the Seven, confess her sins, walk in penance once more. But Cersei Lannister had tasted humiliation, and humiliation was ashes. Instead, she had sent word of her own choosing, trial by combat. A champion already stood at her side, though stood was too meager a word for Ser Gregor Clegane. He loomed, he blotted torches, he breathed like an iron bellows. What mortal dared oppose the mountain reborn? Let the gods pick their pigeon. He would pulp it into a smear. Cersei drew on a quilted robe of black velvet trimmed in ermine, cinched it at the waist, and padded to the arched window overlooking Maegor's Holdfast. In the courtyard below, soldiers drilled by torchlight. The cadence of steel on steel rang faintly, a heartbeat for war. Gold cloaks in twos patrolled the barbican walls, pikes resting on their shoulders, eyes bright with fear and fervor. If they served her son, they served her. And Tommen, sweet, trembling Tommen, had already barred himself in the Maester's tower, escorted there by a Kingsguard sworn to obey Grand Maester Pycelle's soft-voiced counsel. Better so. Let the boy sleep. Let innocence dream while monsters glutted themselves on daylight. The robe slid from one shoulder as she turned, revealing pale skin marred by thin pink lines, marks left by Unella's willow branch, though none had broken flesh. Still, each throbbed in memory. Her shame bolstered her resolve. The faith had tried to break her body. Now she would break theirs. Footfalls beyond the door, measured and deliberate. Cersei tensed, picturing the white-armored sentinel standing watch. "Enter," she said. Ser Robert Strong filled the doorway, helmed and silent, his plated shoulders nearly brushing the lintel. He bowed, an odd, creaking motion, and waited. Cersei lifted her chin. "Summon Qyburn. Have the black robes prepared." The great helm inclined. No words were necessary. The mountain had spoken enough in life, and the dead version spoke best with silence. He withdrew, leaving cold air in his wake. Cersei allowed herself another swallow of wine, then set the cup aside. She needed no numbness, only the memory of its fire. Today she would taste blood sweeter than arbor gold. The city awoke slowly, like a beast roused by distant drums. Smoke rose from cook fires, mingling with the stench of tanneries and the rank perfume of the river gate. By the time sunshafts scattered across the rooftops, throngs pressed toward the hill of Baelor, drawn by a hunger for spectacle that bordered on devotion. Small folk in threadbare cloaks elbowed onion sellers, cobblers, beggar boys. They spoke of lions and sparrows, of queens and champions, of judgment descending from 7 heavens or 7 hells. No one agreed which. The September's marble facade loomed above them, pillars white as bone, statues of the 7 gazing with blind serenity. At its topmost step, half a score of faith militant brothers stood arrayed in mail hauberks, 7 pointed stars polished bright upon their breasts. Their spears crossed to bar the main doors until the appointed hour. Within, the Sept rang like a hollow bell with hymns. Hundreds of candles bathed the mosaics in honeyed light. The father in stern sapphire, the mother in gentle rose, the warrior ablaze in crimson shards that caught each tremor of flame. At the altar's foot knelt the high sparrow, head bowed, lips working in silent prayer. Behind him murmured a tangle of septons and septas, their whispers weaving a net of petitions. Outside the Lady September adjacent, Queen's retinue gathered. Lord Kevin in Lannister red, jaw set like a doorbar. Pycelle stooped beneath chains that rattled with each quivering breath. Ser Jaime, not yet dismissed from the Kingsguard but estranged by war, stood apart in plain steel plate, eyes hooded. Their gazes flicked toward the Queen's litter drawn by 6 white palfreys, its curtains of quilted crimson stitched with threads of gold. When Ser Gregor dismounted from his towering destrier, conversation faltered. Some claimed the mountain's armor was blackened steel, though polished to mirror sheen. Others whispered it was midnight blue enamel to cloak old blood. Whatever the hue, it devoured light. His helm, skull-shaped beneath gilded sigils, hid whatever Qyburn had wrought beneath. When he moved, plates rasped like millstones grinding bone. Cersei emerged a moment later. She was clad in a gown of somber charcoal, almost austere but for the lacquered breastplate worked with a rampant lion in beaten silver. Her hair, once shorn by Unella's shears, had grown to a gilded cap. Qyburn's tonics lent it a sheen of molten honey. Around her throat coiled a torque of rubies. They glowed like embers against ashcloth. "Your Grace," Kevin greeted, voice a terse bow. "Uncle." She kissed his cheek, tasting salt and fear. "Is all prepared?" The city watch doubles the cordon. No armed company may pass the Street of Sisters without a Lannister banner. "Good." She brushed a fleck of dust from her sleeve. "And the Tyrells?" "At the Sept already. Let them rot in pews." She turned to Jaime. For half a heartbeat words tangled. Brother, lover, betrayer. But she smoothed them with a soft smile. "Walk with me." Jaime's golden beard twitched. "Until the doors." They crossed the courtyard in silence. Cersei's slippered feet whispered on flagstones. Jaime's bootheels struck like clock hammers. Ahead, Ser Gregor strode, parting guards like rushes in a river. At the Sept steps, a line of faith militant blocked the way, spears leveled. Their captains barked orders, shields interlocked. Cersei's lips curled. Did they imagine steel could balk the mountain? The high sparrow appeared between the doors, palms raised. He wore plain wool robes, patched and fraying, yet he shone somehow, an illusion spun from zeal and reflected light. "Sister," he called, voice carrying across the square. "Will you confess and beg the mother's mercy?" "I come for judgment," Cersei answered, cold as moonlight. "By the ancient laws of our realm, I have named a champion." She inclined her head toward Gregor's towering bulk. "Let the gods decide." A ripple skittered through the waiting crowd. The sparrow's smile never faltered. "And so they shall. The faith militant has chosen its own sword." Brother Lancel stepped forward. Jaime stiffened. Kevin choked a word. From the line of devout emerged a gaunt figure in gray leather, half his hair shorn, brow branded with a star. Lancel's face, once smooth with princeling pride, had hollowed into a pilgrim's visage. Scars marred his temples where wounds yet bled beneath linen wraps. He bowed low, eyes fixed upon the cobbles. Cersei's laugh rang across the stones. Bright, brittle, slightly mad. "My dear cousin," she crooned. "You always were eager to crawl. Do you truly mean to face my champion?" Lancel lifted sunken eyes. The warrior strengthens my arm. The father guides my blade. If I die, the smith forges hope from my blood. The mountain inclined his helm, a gesture that might have been mocking courtesy. The high sparrow gestured. Then let us be done. Within the Sept, benches groaned beneath the weight of spectators. Lords crowded the front. Mace Tyrell stuffed into green satin. Olenna beside him like a withered hawk wrapped in black lace. Lord Giles Rosby wheezing into a cloth. Marjorie sat with hands clasped, face pale but poised. Beside her, Loras Tyrell's eyes blazed through feverish hollows. His arm rested in a sling, though rumor claimed bones showed beneath. As Cersei stepped through the doors, a hush fell. Incense coiled upward like charred silk. Sunlight speared through stained glass, painting her in shards of ruby and gold, as though the warrior and the mother vied to claim her. Ser Gregor stalked behind, each step thudding as though the floor were a drum stretched over hell. Cersei advanced to the crimson mosaic before the altar. There she turned, skirts whispering over Tesseri. She watched the high sparrow ascend 3 shallow steps to address the assembly. His voice rose, a ringing pulse. Sin, mercy, punishment, redemption. Words slid past her like minnows past a kraken. Her gaze lingered instead on Olenna's tightened mouth, on Mace's shifting bulk, on Marjorie's trembling lashes. At last the sparrow spoke the ancient formula. Let the gods decide. The warrior will lend strength. The father will judge. Champions, stand fort. Lancel removed his plain cloak, revealing mail of modest links, a round shield bearing 7 hollow stars, and a long sword unadorned. He kissed the blade, then knelt before the altar, murmuring prayer. The mountain merely drew his great sword, a slab of Valyrian steel dark as a midnight wave, its edge catching candlelight in hungry flashes. Monks scattered from between them, scurrying like mice. The Sept's doors boomed shut, iron bars dropping into stone sockets. There would be no escape. Cersei stepped back among her guards, her lips parted, thirsting for each heartbeat. Lancel rose, sword steady. He circled wide, shield raised, eyes locked on the mountain's helm slits. The mountain did not circle. He walked directly forward, a slow, inevitable stride, joints grinding under blackened plate. The first clash rang like temple bells. Lancel's blade skittered off a pauldron, sparks fountaining. Gregor answered with a sweep that would have sheared a horse's spine. The young knight ducked under, shield high, marble chipped where steel-bit pillars. Candles trembled in their sconces. Cersei felt the spectators' breaths hitch in collective terror. In that instant she was 10 years old again, watching Jaime spar with men twice his age, giddy with a secret thrill. But Jaime had danced on velvet feet. Gregor lumbered, each step a sledge. Lancel darted, stabbed at the gaps beneath the mountain's right arm. The blade slipped between greaves and cuisse, drawing a thin line of black ichor. Whispered gasps fluttered. Gregor did not flinch. He turned, backhanding with his gauntlet. The blow hammered Lancel's shield. Would split, rings flew. For 3 exchanges more they circled. Lancel probing with thrusts, Gregor shrugging them aside, closing windows until no daylight shone. Then the mountain caught Lancel's sword upon his own, locked guards and wrenched. The Faith's champion stumbled. A mailed fist crashed against his helm, denting steel into skin. Blood spattered ivory tiles. Still Lancel fought. He ducked a cleaver stroke that split the air with a wail, rolled, came up slashing. Steel scored Gregor's visor, carving a glancing furrow. The mountain's reply was a kick that lifted Lancel from his feet, flung him 5 paces. He landed on his back before the father's idol, coughing crimson. Ser Gregor advanced, shadow long as death. He raised his sword for a finishing arc, but Lancel, scrambling to one knee, hurled the splintered remnant of his shield. It clanged off Gregor's helm, jarring him a half-step. Enough! Lancel sprang beneath the descending blade, drove his sword two-handed at the mountain's armpit where chain met plate. The point punched through with a wet crunch. Dark fluid gushed, a roar, more beast than man. Shook the September Gregor staggered back, sword clattering from his gauntlet as fingers spasmed. Loras Tyrell cried out involuntarily. Olenna gripped the pew. Even Jaime's mouth parted in astonishment. But the mountain did not fall. One huge hand closed around the sword jutting from his flesh and snapped the blade like a reed. Black gore hissed onto the floor, steaming where it pooled. Gregor seized Lancel by the throat, hoisting him high. The young knight's feet kicked. Prayers sputtered from blue lips. For a heartbeat, silence curdled. Then bone cracked, an obscene, ripe sound. Gregor's fist squeezed. Lancel's windpipe collapsed. Eyes bulged. He hung limp, sword stump still thrust in Gregor's side. Somewhere a Septa screamed. Lords surged from benches. Cersei watched, pulse of thunder beneath her ribs, as the mountain hurled the corpse. It struck the warrior's altar, limbs splaying like a broken doll. Candles toppled, wax splattered flame. The high sparrow knelt, head bowed, lips moving, but words could not mend a shattered neck. Gregor bent, retrieved his fallen greatsword. He raised it high in a salute that was mockery and victory in one. Candles glittered on its edge. Blood dripped like ink from parchment. Cersei stepped forward. "The gods have spoken," she declared, voice ringing clear. "I stand absolved." The high sparrow rose slowly. "The gods speak in many tongues, your grace." His gaze swept the marble floor, the spreading black gore, the broken altar. Today, they speak of judgment still to come. Cersei felt laughter bloom behind her teeth. Wild, fierce, unstoppable. "Let judgment find me," she said. "It will choke on lion's blood." At her gesture, Lannister guards unbarred the doors. Sunlight lanced in, catching dust motes that danced like embers. The faith militant outside parted grudgingly as Ser Gregor strode forth, dragging black gore that painted a trail across the Sept's white steps. The square erupted in shouts. Some cheered, some wailed prayers, some spat curses. But all stepped back when the mountain's shadow fell upon them. By sunset, bells tolled from tower to tower. Morning bells, warning bells. Word swept through flea-bottom alleys and merchant lanes. The faith's champion lay broken. The queen was free, the sparrow humbled. Some prostrated themselves at street shrines, begging the Father for clarity. Others whispered of wildfire caches beneath the Sept, of a lioness caged too long. In the Red Keep's council chamber, the small council convened at Cersei's summons. Kevin stood at the head, face gray with strain. Pycelle wheezed. Master of Coin Harry's SWFT dabbed sweat. Qyburn lingered in shadow, black robes smelling faintly of parchment and grave dust. Cersei occupied the Iron Throne's dais. She did not sit. That seat belonged to Tommen by law and ceremony. But she stood before it, left hand resting on a barbed armrest. "Ser Gregor's wounds?" she asked Qyburn. "Cleaned, my queen," the alchemist murmured. "He feels no pain." "Excellent." Her gaze flicked to Kevin. "Summon the Kingsguard. We march on the September of Baelor at dawn. The faith militant are to disarm and disperse or die where they stand." Kevin's jaw worked. "Sister, the city may riot. The High Sparrow commands the love of small folk." Cersei's smile was thin enough to cut. "Love is a chain, uncle. Break the chain and what remains is fear. Fear is stronger." Pycelle's beard quivered. "Better to negotiate. Seize the sparrow, hold him hostage, perhaps." "Enough!" She swept a hand, silencing him. "The faith burnt my flesh with shame. They shall burn in turn." Only Qyburn smiled. "I have mechanisms prepared, should your grace wish to avoid undue bloodshed." "Blood," she said, "is seldom undue." Outside, dusk bled into night. Lannister banners snapped on ramparts. Torches guttered. Somewhere below, in a cell of rough stone, Septa Unella still lay gagged and bound, her groans echoing no louder than a mouse's lament. Cersei had not visited yet. Let anticipation season the dish. She turned from the council, robes whispering, "Prepare the city gates. No food passes until further notice. Hunger will make the sparrows thin." Kevin bowed stiffly. Pycelle drooped. Qyburn nodded, quill already scratching parchment. Cersei left the hall, Ser Gregor pacing behind like a silent wolfhound. The corridor outside stretched empty, tapestries fluttering in torch wind. At its end waited Jaime, arms folded. "You won," he said. His voice was flat stone. "Our house won," she corrected. "And tomorrow we'll finish the game." Jaime's golden head tilted. "The city may drown in fire and faith. Then we'll teach it to swim." She brushed his cheek with gloved fingers. "Stand with me." His green eyes searched hers, once mirrors, now strangers. At last he turned away. "I must think." Cersei watched him go, fury and longing wrestling in her breast. Think then, but return with sword in hand or not at all. She descended spiraling stairs to her solar. There, on the sill, the city sprawled in moonlight. Roofs tiled like dragon scales, alleys twisted as a crone's fingers, the black ribbon of the Blackwater glimmering beyond. Somewhere in that maze children wept prayers to the mother. Men sharpened knives. Women whispered tales of lions devouring doves. Cersei sipped wine. The night tasted of ash and promise. Tomorrow would bring smoke, screams, iron. But tonight she felt alive, every nerve singing like a harp string pulled taut. She closed her eyes and saw Ser Gregor's gauntlet crushing Lancel's throat, heard the snap, the wet rasp. She imagined the sparrow's face as he watched hope die. She savored it. Then she opened her eyes and smiled at the moon. "Let them pray," she whispered. "I will answer." Dawn painted the horizon with a bruise of violet. Trumpets blared from the red keep's barbican. Hoofbeats rattled the cobbles. Columns of gold cloaks marched two abreast, halberds gleaming, shields bearing the crowned stag of Tommen alongside the roaring lion. Behind them rolled siege wagons fitted with iron-shod rams. At their head rode Ser Gregor, armor polished and freshly oiled, helm visor lifted to reveal that blank, corpse-pale mask beneath. Beside him, Cersei sat astride a white mare caparisoned in crimson velvet. Her own armor lacquered black save for the silver lion sprawling breast to hip. As she passed the mud gate, fishwives spat curses. Some flung stones that clattered harmlessly off shields. Cersei did not glance aside. She was the tide. Stones could not wound the tide. Near the Street of Sisters, a tide of brown-robed worshippers blocked the way, clutching wooden stars, chanting hymns. The gold cloaks advanced, shields locked. At a shouted command, spears prodded. The crowd parted grudgingly, some falling to knees, others sobbing. Cersei smelled their fear, the tang of sweat and tallow, the musk of unwashed hope. Atop the hill of Baelor, the September's doors stood closed. Faith Militant lined the steps, shields interlocked, spears braced. Above them, banners of the Seven snapped in wind, white stars on field of sky blue. Lancel's broken body had been removed, burned, perhaps, but a dark stain remained upon the marble, a silhouette of defeat. Cersei reined in. "Ser Gregor," she called. "Ask them kindly." The mountain spurred forward, sword drawn. A brother of the faith stepped forth, palms raised in plea. Gregor's blade sheared him from shoulder to hip. Blood sprayed the steps, slickening marble. Pandemonium erupted. Faith Militant surged. Lannister halberds leveled.
Spears clashed, shields rang.
Cersei sat her mare as arrows hissed overhead, lips parted in savage joy. Within minutes, the steps were a charnel. Gregor waited, each stroke reaping lives. Squires tried to drag brothers back. Their own blood greased flagstones. From arrow slits high on the Sept came flights of quarrels, but most found only armor or flesh of fellow devotees. Cersei signaled. Siege wagons lumbered forward, rams pounding. Stone trembled, cracks webbed ivory pillars. The doors shuddered under iron-bound timber poles driven like boar tusks. Above the din, the High Sparrow appeared on a balcony, arms spread. "Lay down arms," he cried. "Brothers, sisters, remember the mother's mercy." A crossbow bolt whisked past his ear, embedding in oak. He did not flinch. Violence begets violence. A second quarrel took him in the breast. He staggered, robes darkening, but remained upright. A third bolt punched his shoulder. At last he toppled, robes flaring like broken wings as he fell past windows to smash upon the steps below. A cheer rose from the Lannister ranks. The Faith Militants' line wavered, broke, scattered down alleys screaming. Gregor pursued, but Cersei's voice cut through carnage. "Hold! Let them carry tales." She dismounted, boots splashing through blood. The Sept doors groaned, hinges sprung. She stepped inside. Candles guttered, smoke heavy with incense and terror. Somewhere deeper in shadow, Septas huddled in prayer. Cersei knelt beside the High Sparrow's corpse. Blood bubbled at his lips. His eyes, still open, held a puzzled sorrow. She stroked his cheek. "Speak to your gods," she murmured. "Tell them a lion has come to feast." She rose, turned to her guards. "Burn it." Torches leapt. Banners curled black. The statues of the Seven watched in silent witness as flames climbed pillars, devouring silk and faith alike. Smoke rolled through stained glass windows, turning sunlight sepia. From the square below, citizens watched their holiest place become a pyre. Some wailed, others knelt, others fled. By nightfall, the great dome collapsed in a roar, scattering embers that rained upon the city like red snow. But victory carries seeds of its own undoing. Hunger gnawed King's Landing within days. Trade carts balked at ash-dark skies and barricades manned by nervous gold cloaks. Wells fouled as soot drifted on the wind. The Mother's Mercy houses overflowed with burnt pilgrims, moaning prayers to absent gods. In council, Kevin argued for clemency, but Cersei dismissed him. "Let them starve. They will chew faith from their bones before they challenge me again." Still, rumors bred like flies. Some whispered the mountain's ichor was pestilence, that each drop soaked into cobbles sprouted plague. Others spoke of a pale maiden in the streets healing wounds with a touch. Marjorie the innocent, risen goddess. Threats and visions twined, setting faction against faction. Late one evening, Olenna Tyrell requested audience. She arrived leaning on a jade-handled cane, her shadow long in torchlight. "My queen," she said, voice like brittle parchment. "You have won your war yet risk your kingdom. Fire is a hungry pet." Cersei poured wine into 2 cups, offered one. "Drink or go." Olenna took the cup, sipped, eyes never leaving Cersei's. "The Reach feeds this city. Burn our faith, we burn your harvest." "Then you burn your gold," Cersei countered. "The city will survive on the flesh of traitors." City flesh includes Lannister flesh. Your own. Cersei's smile was a blade. "Do you threaten me, Lady Olenna? I remind you, seeds grow in ashes, and some weeds strangle lions." She set the cup down, untouched henceforth. "Make peace with the mother's children while you may." When the old woman left, Cersei hurled her cup at the hearth, wine hissing on coals. "Peace," she spat. "Peace is made with corpses." Nights grew restless. Dreams swarmed. Wildfire fountains engulfing red roofs. Tommen's voice crying through smoke. Jaime's back retreating down endless corridors. Awaking, she found no solace. Letters arrived from Riverrun, from the Lords Declarant of the Vale, from Dorne, each bearing tidings of descent. One dawn, ravens brought worse news. Storm's End had sworn to Stannis' daughter Shireen, a queen who rode north with Davos Seaworth at her side, banners of the fiery heart ablaze. The North answered their call. The Vale opened its gates to Littlefinger's gold. The realm, Cersei realized, had grown teeth in the dark. She ordered fresh levies. Qyburn's ravens summoned Sellsword companies across the narrow sea. But coin dripped through her fingers faster than blood through stone. The Iron Bank of Bravos demanded repayment. Pycelle coughed gloom in council. One gray afternoon, Jaime returned from the Riverlands, beard wild, armor dented. He strode into her solar without announcing, knelt before her. "Cersei," he said, voice raw. "Edmure Tully has raised blackfish banners again. The country burns. Let it." She rose, circled him, fingers brushing his pauldron. "We hold the capital. For now." He caught her wrist. "Come away with me. Casterly Rock, anywhere. This city will bury us." She laughed softly. "Bury me? I am the grave." That night they lay together for the first time since her walk of shame. Their coupling was desperate, clawing, edges of armor clattering to tiles. After, she traced the stump where Jaime's hand had been, brushed lips across scarred flesh. "We are all that matters," she whispered. "Brother, lover, twin flame." But Jaime stared past the bedchamber, as if hearing distant horns. Winter's first storm descended in swirling white, cloaking charred ruins of the September snowflakes melted on smoldering timbers, hissing secrets. Flea-bottom children scooped fistfuls of gray slush that tasted of ash. Fires guttered in braziers. Coal grew scarce. Hunger's howl rose louder than temple bells ever had. In the bowels of the Red Keep, Qyburn conducted experiments on faith corpses, searching for a weapon to quell dissent. He spoke of blue fire and curseled plagues. Cersei listened, eyes bright, as if he recited love poetry. Outside, mobs gathered nightly, torches lifted, chanting for bread and mercy. Gold cloaks held lines, but their helms rang hollow. Some slipped away into alleys, abandoning posts for scraps of pigeon. When a baker's cart was overturned in Cobbler Square, riots surged. Houses were looted, shops burned. A rumor spread that Cersei planned to marry Tommen to a Volantene princess, selling the realm to foreigners. Crowds stormed the Lion Gate, repelled only by boiling oil. Cersei watched from ramparts, cloak snapping, heart hammering a war drum. "Let them roar," she told Jaime. "A roar spends breath." Jaime's gaze traced plumes of smoke rising from the city. "A roar spends blood, too." He left that night, cloak drawn tight, refusing escort. He rode north, chasing rumors of Blackfish and Brienne, leaving only a folded parchment on her pillow. When the lion devours its own cubs, the forest laughs. She tore it to ribbons. On the 12th night of winter, bells rang again, this time from the mud gate. A column of armored men rode beneath a crowned stag banner quartered with a direwolf. At their head strode Ser Davos Seaworth and Lady Stoneheart. No, Shireen Baratheon, scars of grayscale gleaming silver in torchlight. Alongside marched knights of the Vale, winged helms shining. Citizens knelt at their passage, tears freezing on cheeks. The gates unbarred themselves as if by ghostly hand. Gold cloaks vanished into doorways. Shireen's host swept up Visenya's hill, banners snapping over empty barricades. Tommen watched from a window, clutching Ser Pounce. His crown felt heavier than the sword of Damocles. In the throne room, Cersei donned armor, rubies at her throat. Ser Gregor stood beside, sword idle yet hungry. Qyburn produced slim glass vials containing wildfire spores, or so he claimed, ready to burst into emerald storms. Hoofbeats thundered in the yard below. Steel boots echoed in halls. The doors flew wide. Shireen entered clad in maester-woven furs, Davos at her left, Brienne of Tarth at her right. Plain steel shining honest. Behind them came lords of Vale and North and Stormlands, eyes stern, voices silent. Cersei descended the dais one step. "You trespass upon your queen." Shireen lifted her chin. "The realm has no queen who burns holy ground and starves her flock." Cersei laughed softly, fingers brushing the dagger at her waist. "Yet it kneels to a child scarred by death." Brienne's hand fell to her sword, but Shireen touched her arm. "No more blood." She faced Cersei. "Yield the city. You will stand trial, as your enemies once did." Cersei's gaze slid to Ser Gregor. He stepped forward, sword rasping. "I have a champion," she purred. Shireen's eyes saddened. "And I have truth." Cersei's smile was a razor. "Truth is a blade duller than you think." She signaled. Qyburn hurled a vial. It shattered on marble, green fire blooming like hungry petals. Flames licked tapestries, rushed toward Shireen. But Brienne's shield dashed sparks aside. Davos flung his cloak, smothering tongues. Soldiers surged. The throne room erupted in steel. Gregor waited, carving arcs. Vale knights answered with long axes. Blood spattered pillars. Qyburn fled into shadows. Cersei advanced on Shireen, dagger gleaming. Brienne stepped to intercept, but Cersei feinted, skirt swirling, blade flicking toward the child. At the last instant, Ser Pounce, Tommen's beloved cat, darted across the tiles, yowling. Cersei stumbled, dagger grazing Shireen's sleeve. Brienne's sword hammered Cersei's blade aside, sending it skittering. The lioness staggered back against the Iron Throne's barbs, one biting into her shoulder. She felt warm blood seep. Across the hall, Ser Gregor roared as 6 knights drove pikes into joints of his armor. One pierced the rent beneath his arm where Lancel's sword had once bitten. Steam hissed. Gregor lurched, swung, crushed a helm like an eggshell. But another pikeman drove steel through his visor. Black ichor sprayed. The mountain fell to one knee, then collapsed with a clang that shook floor and rafters. Cersei saw her monster die and felt something snap within. She shoved off the throne, tearing flesh on barbs, and lunged for wildfire vials strewn near Qyburn's fallen satchel. Flames crackled across carpet now, heat kissing her cheeks. Brienne closed on her, shield raised. Davos shouted. Snowflakes drifted through shattered windows, hissing upon green flame. Cersei's fingers closed around a vial. She hurled it at Shireen. Time slowed. A glass arc, emerald shimmer. Then Brienne's shield intercepted. The vial exploded against steel, fireball wreathing the night. Brienne staggered, cloak aflame. But Shireen stood untouched, eyes wide with sorrow. She stepped forward, placed a gloved hand on Cersei's arm. "Enough," the child whispered. Cersei stared at the girl's scars, the pale lattice where death had once kissed life, and for a heartbeat she saw Myrcella, saw Joffrey in the throes of purple death, saw Tommen perched upon windowsill's edge, future ghosts. Her dagger hand trembled. Behind, gold cloaks burst through side passages. Helms discarded, tabards stripped. They threw down arms before Shireen. The city had chosen. Cersei's strength deserted her. She sank to her knees, armor groaning, hair clinging to sweat-slicked cheeks. The dagger clanged to marble. Shireen knelt opposite, voice soft. "I will not have you dragged through streets naked. You will stand trial in the Red Keep with lords to judge. Your son will keep his crown, under regency until he comes of age." Cersei looked past the child to the fallen mountain, to Brienne coughing flame-tinged smoke, to knights hauling wildfire-scorched corpses aside. Smoke curled toward rafters like the shade of the high sparrow, arms spread. She laughed, small, cracked, broken. "All my life," she whispered, "I was told lions eat lambs, but lambs grow fangs." Shireen's scarred lips curved in the faintest smile. "Sometimes they grow wings instead." Soldiers lifted Cersei to her feet, shackles clicking around wrists. She barely felt them, her gaze fixed on the Iron Throne, barbs gleaming. Blood dotted its steps, hers and others. She wondered if the chair drank pain, grew stronger with each drop. Perhaps one day it would stand alone, a monument to folly, empty yet sated. As she was led away, dawn light spilled through the shattered rose window, bathing the hall in a soft pink that made fire seem distant embers. Snow drifted inward, settling on corpses, on steel, on the twisted grin of Ser Gregor's fallen helm. Cersei closed her eyes. In the hush beneath the clatter of arms, she almost thought she heard bells. The same bells that had mocked her walk of shame, now tolling for her once more. But no, these were different bells, far away, gentler. Perhaps they rang in some other city where queens still ruled and children still played and faith meant more than fire. Perhaps, or perhaps they rang only in her memory, fragile as glass, ready to shatter beneath the tread of tomorrow. Cersei Lannister sat where once the small council met, though the room had been stripped of its tapestries and banners. The chairs were still there, but the cushions had been removed, leaving bare wood polished by decades of anxious councils. Shackles pinned her wrists behind the chair back. A faint ache pulsed up her arms and settled in her shoulders. Damp from melting snow seeped beneath the door, silvery threads that made the stone shine like slate. Qyburn's strange perfumes no longer masked the sour tang of fear that clung to the dark corners of the Red Keep. Every torch burned low, as if reluctant to illuminate the queen undone. She counted heartbeats, not minutes. Minutes invited reflection, and reflection threatened to crack her open. She let the beat of her pulse become a drummer pacing a battlefield. Slow, methodical, unstoppable. Doom, doom, doom. Somewhere above, faint footfalls passed. New guards in mottled cloaks stitched with a stag and direwolf, the sigil of Shireen's uneasy alliance. Their accents drifted down the stairwell, guttural northern burr mingled with Stormland's gravel. They talked of supplies, of the next snow, of how the sea lanes were choking with ice flows along Crackclaw Point. No one mentioned her name now. She had bled meaning from it until only the echo of power remained. The door grated open. Davos Seaworth entered first, candles trembling in his wake. He carried no sword. None was needed. Behind him came Grand Maester Pycelle, beard stained with broth, chains clinking like a wind chime. They were accompanied by a willowy Maester Cersei did not know, followed by 2 knights of the Vale whose winged helms lacquered black made them resemble carrion crows. Davos inclined his head, never quite bowing. "Your Grace," he said in a tone neither iron nor velvet. "You asked to see your son." She lifted her chin. "Tommen is king. A mother's counsel belongs to him. Bring him." Pycelle fussed with his sleeves. "His Majesty is indisposed," Davos said. "The boy eats little. He asks after Serpounce and cries at night. He'll face the realm when the regency is ready, but not before." "The realm?" Cersei let a rasp slide into her smile. "The realm changes crowns more often than small folk change straw. You mistake a child's tears for weakness, Onion Knight. They temper steel in water as often as in fire." "Perhaps." Davos dipped 2 fingers into a pouch and drew out a folded parchment broken in 3. "He wrote you this." Cersei's pulse quickened, but she kept her eyes steady. "Read it. It is for your eyes." "I have no eyes, only chains." She jerked her shoulders, wringing the iron. "Read." Davos hesitated, then unfolded the creased scrap. "Mother," he began, voice rough, "I pray you accept mercy. They say you will stand trial and the gods will judge. I hope they are kinder than men. I want you to live, even if I cannot see you. Please do not fight, Mother. Cannot bear more fighting. I love you, Tommen." Cersei tasted copper. "Ink is a poor substitute for a kiss." "He wrote more," Davos said. "Please tell Serpounce I will feed him every day myself if only you come home." The parchment trembled. The knight cleared his throat. "There's a smear of tears on the tail of the—" Pycelle dabbed his eyes. "A good boy." Cersei inhaled through her nose, slow. "Leave me." The words scraped raw. "Return when you bring my son." Davos exchanged a glance with the Vale Knights. One shook his head. "Not yet," Davos said gently. "Shireen meets with the lords tonight to draft the charges. Tomorrow at dawn. You'll parade me like a sow to slaughter." "I know." She fixed Pycelle with a stare icy enough to frost glass. "You stank of fear the day Joffrey died. You stink worse now." The Grand Maester flinched behind his beard. "Child, please. Child," she echoed, amused despite herself. "I broke kingdoms before that beard was trimmed." But the laughter faded quickly. "Get out. Let the stone keep watch." They withdrew. The torches seemed dimmer for their passing, leaving her with nothing but the shuffle of distant footsteps and the slow drip of melted snow. She tasted the memory of Arbor Gold on her tongue, a ghost flavor teasing her thirst, and wondered if she would ever drink again. Time slipped. The cold seeped into the hinges of her jaw until her teeth chattered, and she closed her lips hard to still them. When the door opened once more, she thought at first she dreamed. Jaime slipped inside, his cloak a shroud of frost. He smelled of horse sweat and the piney tang of northern winds. Snowflakes clung to the gold of his hair, melting slowly. He stopped 3 paces from her, as if the air between were a wall. No guards accompanied him. Perhaps they judged a one-handed knight no threat, or perhaps he had bribed them. His eyes were hollow with travel, darker than she remembered, shadowed with weeks of smoke and midnight fires. "Brother," she said, but the word came out cracked, part sob, part whisper. Jaime crossed the flagstones. His boots left melted prints like brief stars. He knelt beside her chair so their faces nearly touched. "I had to see you before." He did not finish. "You rode south," she murmured. "Blackfish? Brienne? Gone." Riverrun's banners scattered to the hills when the snow set in. Brienne escorts Stark prisoners to Winterfell for peace talks. None of it mattered without. He searched her face. "Gods, Cersei, what have you done to us? What was needed?" She tried to lift her hand to his cheek. The chain jerked and bit into her wrists. "Help me." Jaime's gaze drifted to the iron. Cuffs, but he did not reach for them. "There are 15 guards outside. 100 more between here and the stables. Davos swore to Shireen I would not smuggle you out." Swore to her. Cersei laughed softly. "Knights and oaths. Sand castles in the tide. Tell me you have a plan," he whispered. "Tell me you aren't ready to die." "D." Her smile sharpened. "I am Lannister. Even ashes remember the roar. You burned the September. You strangled the city." He gestured vaguely toward the window slit where dawn-gray light seeped. "They say half the grain stores are gone. That Sel's words broke contracts. That Braavos threatens war. Let them." But the steel in her voice wavered under his stare. "We built kingdoms together, Jaime. We can build again." His hand, the gold one, rested on her knee through the rip of her gown. The cold metal leached warmth fast. "I would give everything I have left, Cersei, if that were true. But you have made the realm into a pyre. They will light it at dawn. They will try." She leaned forward, chains clinking. "There is wildfire left." Qyburn placed caches under the dragon pit, under the street of flour, beneath the kennels. "If the trial turns against me," he recoiled, "you would burn them all? Women? Children?" She remembered the octagonal dome collapsing, emerald light washing corpses. "I will leave a kingdom of bones before I bow to a sparrow's chick." Jaime's broken fingers traced the air between them. "You are alone, sister. I have you." His shoulders slumped. "Do you? You sent a monster to the Riverlands. Gregor harried farms, hanged millers. You forced men to choose between their king and their gods. When the choice was made, it wasn't Tommen they turned on." He swallowed. "Children starve outside the mud gate. Did Qyburn tell you that? Mothers gnaw bark to feed infants colic water, while you plan more fire." Cersei's lips trembled. "I did it for us." Jaime's eyes glistened. "There is no us they will leave standing." He kissed her forehead, a feather touch. "Forgive me, for WH." But he was on his feet, striding for the door. She called his name once, softly, and heard him pause. He did not look back. When the door shut, the room shrank like a throat around a hangman's noose. Tears splashed her cheeks hot despite the chill. "Doom, doom, doom," her heart insisted, still beating, though cracks spidered through resolve. She pictured Tommen curled in furs, clutching Ser Pounce, eyes swollen. She pictured Myrcella's coffin beneath the Sept's rubble, Joffrey's purple face above a goblet. Children she bore, children she lost. To keep them safe you birthed fear, the cold stone seemed to whisper. "Fear gives nothing back." She swallowed until her throat burned. Morning came thin and grim. The cell door opened to admit 4 guards with manacles. Cersei refused their hands, rose under her own power, chin lifted. She wore an unadorned gown of black velvet. No jewels, no armor, only the torque of rubies she had kept hidden in her bodice. They glowed like embers against the stark cloth. Outside, the corridor smelled of pine resin and pitch torches. Winter's first gale rattled arrow slits, carrying a distant clamor. Thousands gathering before the Red Keep's courtyard, drawn by the promise of royal justice. Shireen would sit the high seat. The lords of Vale, Stormlands, Riverlands, and Reach would render verdict. Davos had argued for a smaller audience, but Lady Olenna insisted. Let the people see the snake defanged. Cersei imagined her pinched smile. She bared her teeth in return. They marched her down a stair that once led to the throne room's antechamber. Now it had been remade into a hall of judgment. Tapestries depicting 7-pointed stars hung over the windows. Sunlight spilled in slanted columns, catching swirling dust and the dull gleam of steel helms. Benches crowded each wall. Tyrells in green, Aarons in blue, Baratheons in gold on black, even one tall woman in gray and blue of Tarth. Brienne, bandaged but standing. Among them, only a scattering of crimson-cloaked Lannister loyalists remained, faces tight with resignation. At center on a dais stood the Iron Throne, empty. To its left had been erected a plain wooden chair with stag sigils. Shireen's seat. She sat there now, small form swallowed by furs, grayscale scars catching daylight. Davos stood behind, hand on her shoulder. To the right of the throne, a second wooden seat waited Cersei's. But she would not sit. The guards guided her nevertheless. Iron manacles clanked as they chained her to armrests. Silence rippled like a banner unfurling. Shireen spoke, voice clear though soft. Cersei of House Lannister, Queen Regent, do you know why you stand accused? I stand because men fear queens, Cersei answered. Murmurs rose, quickly hushed. Shireen folded scarred hands atop her lap. You are charged with the murder of the High Septon, the Faith Militant, and scores within the September of Baelor, with stockpiling wildfire beneath the city, with treason against King Tommen Baratheon by placing him under unlawful influence, and with crimes of war against the small folk of the Crownlands. How do you answer? I answer that I saved this city from zealots who would have torn it apart. Your lords forget how the High Sparrow whipped mobs into frenzy. I freed them. Her gaze swept benches, daring contradiction. If innocence died, blame those who cowered behind piety. Lady Olenna rose, cane tapping tile. Innocence died because you lit a fuse beneath their sanctuary, dear. Cersei smiled. The 7 protect the righteous. The rest needed no sanctuary. Olenna snorted. And you wonder why winter feels colder. Lord Royce of the Vale lifted a gauntlet. Enough rhetoric. Present the evidence. Witnesses came. Septa survivors bearing scars of smoke. Gold cloaks who deserted after the burning. Merchants whose warehouses of grain were seized for crown levy. Each spoke, voices quavering or furious. Cersei listened with half-lidded eyes, noting which lords leaned forward, which sat impassive. The court gave her chance to cross-examine, but she refused. Why dismantle lies built of straw? Fire would come. At midday the court recessed. Guards restrained her while pages distributed bread and watered wine to the benches. None offered her any. Hunger gnawed her belly, but she brushed it aside, counting breaths. During recess, she glimpsed Jaime leaning against a pillar beyond the benches. Arms folded, expression unreadable. When his gaze met hers, his brow creased, and he touched 2 fingers to his lips. Half salute, half farewell. She felt her pulse slip. He turned, striding through a side door. The court reconvened. Accusations resumed. Suddenly, the tall doors flew open. Qyburn strode in, hair wild, black robes flapping, clutching a small glass lantern glowing an unearthly emerald. Gasps scattered. Guards rushed, but he lifted the lantern high. Back, he hissed. One strike and we all burn. Faces whitened. Steel wavered. Cersei's heart soared. The fool still lives. Qyburn marched down the aisle, eyes fixed on Shireen. Release the queen. You have no idea what sleeps beneath this keep. I hold but a droplet. Davos stepped between Qyburn and the dais, hand outstretched. Maester, put it down. No maester, no chains. Qyburn spat. I serve the lioness. She has claws you cannot imagine. The hall tensed, a bowstring drawn. Then Jaime stepped from that same side door, sword drawn. A plain longsword, edge bright. Placing himself behind Qyburn. Put it down, old friend. Qyburn whirled. You betray her too? I save her. Jaime's voice cracked. Give me the lantern. Qyburn's fingers tightened. The green inside flickered violently. Sweat trickled his temple. Cersei stood or tried. Chains yanked her back. Qyburn, listen, she called. Every face turned toward her. You said fire would cleanse? Qyburn shouted, eyes darting. Let it cleanse. I said fear bends knees, she answered, voice ringing. They are bent now. Lower the flame. We take victory with breath, not ashes. Murmurs rose, surprise, suspicion. Qyburn blinked, confusion rippling through mania. The lantern trembled. Shireen's small voice cut clear. Maester, you were once sworn to heal. Help me keep my people alive. Qyburn's jaw quivered. For a heartbeat the hall seemed to hold no air. Then Jaime stepped forward, gently wrapping his golden fingers around the lantern's handle. Qyburn relinquished his grip. Tears rimmed his eyes. Guards surged, seizing him. Jaime carried the lantern to a waiting brazier filled with water, lowering it until the emerald glow vanished beneath a hiss of steam. Only when the last wisp faded did the court exhale. Cersei slumped back, chains jangling. A strange hollowness spread beneath her ribs. She had spoken words she barely recognized, as if some other voice borrowed her throat. Victory with breath, not ashes, yet ashes felt so near. Shireen addressed the hall. The evidence is clear, yet we must weight mercy against justice. She turned toward Cersei. Speak now honestly. Do you repent these acts? Do you seek forgiveness? Cersei's lips parted. Memory flashed. Her Sept walk, jeers, bells toll, blood on feet. She pictured Lancel's neck snapping beneath Gregor's fist. She heard Joffrey choking, Myrcella's soft smile fading to dead pallor, Tommen weeping into kitten fur. What had fear delivered? Children lost, brother broken, kingdom in ruin. The Iron Throne glimmered behind Shireen, barbs empty, hungry. I repent. The words tore like cloth. Pride screamed, fought, but she strangled it. I repent the flames I loosed. I repent the blood of children mingled with the faith stones. Her voice shook, but I do not repent defending my own. Silence, then a smattering of nods among Lannister benches. Lady Olenna leaned on her cane. A mother's love cannot absolve a murderess, nor can age absolve compliant silence, Cersei snapped back. Your son stuffed himself while the faith armed. Where were your warnings then? Olenna's eyes glittered. Growing sharper, dear. Shireen lifted a hand. Enough. Lords of the realm have heard confession and accusation. We deliberate. Guards led Cersei to a side chamber while lords conferred. The room was small, lined with cracked griffin-skin chairs. Jaime followed. 2 guards stationed outside closed the door, leaving them alone save for torchlight flickering on tapestries stitched with Targaryen dragons, old relics pulled from dusty vaults. Jaime set the wildfire lantern on a hook far from flame. He unbuckled his sword belt, leaned against wall. You could have let him ignite. I thought of it. You stopped him. You handed me a choice. She met his eyes. I chose you. He pressed a hand to his gold chestplate. That choice may see you executed. Better by steel than by fire? Twisted smile. Ash would take you too. Jaime looked away. I could yet ride with you. We slip past. Find a ship.
No.
The sea stinks of salt and desperation. She looked at her bound wrists. Better a last stand. He embraced her, careful of chains. His arm circled her waist. His golden hand rested lightly on her back. They stood silent, breathing each other's warmth until a knock broke them apart. Guards entered. Verdict, one said. The hall felt colder than when she left, though braziers blazed hotter, logs crackling pine sap. Lords and ladies rose as she passed, some in solemn respect, some in grim satisfaction. Shireen stood before the Iron Throne, Davos at her side, face granite. Cersei of House Lannister, Shireen called, voice steady. By council of lords assembled, you are found guilty of crimes against the faith and crown. Yet, in consideration of repentance, we temper judgment. She inhaled. You shall be stripped of all titles save Lady of Casterly Rock. You shall serve the rest of your days in exile there, under guard, your movements bound to the rock's lands. Tommen Baratheon remains king. A regency of lords will guide him until his majority. Should you set foot in King's Landing or command arms against the crown, you forfeit life. Gasps rippled. Some expected execution. Others expected full acquittal. Cersei's heart hammered. Exile. A lion in a cage of stone vistas and ocean roar, but alive. She sensed a trap, yet living offered possibilities. Shireen's gaze did not waver. Do you accept these terms? No, the words slipped before thought. Head swiveled. I accept nothing that leaves my son hostage. She squared her shoulders. Name him safe, free of regents. Let him keep a mother's counsel at the rock. A stir among benches. Lord Royce growled something. Olenna's brows rose. Shireen hesitated. Tommen cannot leave the capital. Then pass sentence, Cersei said, voice chilling. I will not trade one prison for another while my cub sits among wolves. Murmurs erupted. Davos's mouth tightened. Before Shireen could reply, Jaime strode to dais center. Hear me. The court hushed. He knelt before Shireen, sword upturned. Hilt offered. I pledge myself as Tommen's sworn shield. Let the boy keep his crown and rule under my protection. If I fail, hold my life forfeit. Gasps grew louder. Jaime looked at Cersei. Love, resignation, sacrifice all swirling. Cersei's throat closed. She knew what it cost him. To serve another king but not his queen. To stay in the city that hated her to shield their cub. She shook her head, silent plea. Davos bent to confer with Shireen. After a tense moment, the girl nodded. Ser Jaime Lannister, we accept your oath. The regency shall stand, but you will have voice in council and command of the Kingsguard. Lady Cersei will depart within 3 days for Casterly Rock. Cersei found breath again. Jaime rose, but his eyes did not celebrate. He had exchanged one shackle for another. Chains fell from her wrists, unlocked by a guard. The ache lingered. She flexed fingers, blood prickling back. She wanted to run to Jaime, to hold him, to beg him follow. But the hall was full of eyes, and lions did not beg. Shireen spoke last. Let this be the final blaze. The realm bleeds enough. Snow buried roads westward by the time her escort rode from King's Landing. 200 mixed knights. Some Vale, some Reach, a handful of red-cloaked veterans who chose loyalty over comfort. Cersei rode in an open litter, refusing drapes that might hide her face. The city watched, silent. No jeers, no cheers, only hollow waiting. Smoke still wafted from Sept ruins. Winter wind carried soot that settled on snow like gray sugar. Tommen stood atop a battlement, flanked by Ser Jaime and Ser Loras, now gaunt but upright. When their eyes met, Cersei raised a gloved hand. The boy lifted his in trembling answer. She drank in his face, round cheeks thinner now, eyes rimmed red but bright with hope. Behind him the Red Keep's towers lanced the sky, proud but cracked where catapults once hammered. The gates groaned shut behind her litter. The world narrowed to crunch of hooves and the hush of falling snow. 2 days north of Cracklaw Point the escort met refugees streaming south. Farmers fleeing burnt fields, fisherfolk whose boats iced fast in Blackwater Bay. They begged bread. The Vale Knights handed out oat cakes. The Reach men gave apples shriveled to near rot. Cersei watched through parted curtains. Some recognized her. Fear flashed, but no one cursed. Hunger muffled hate. At Hayford, lordless since war, they found the holdfast empty save rats. Snow drifted through breaches in the ceiling. Her escort camped in the bailey while she claimed a solar whose hearth still held charred logs. She sat alone, wrapping herself in furs, staring at flame-chewed stone where once tapestries of roses had hung. Her mind replayed the trial's verdict again and again, cutting deeper with each pass. Lannister legacies weighed heavy. At the Rock she would be a guest in her childhood halls, under watch of men sworn to Shireen's crown. Kept, but not queen. The thought chafed worse than chains. Yet some ember of resolve glowed. The rock remained hers by birth. Gold veins still ran deep, dwarfing debts owed to bravos. With careful whispers, promises, alliances, perhaps power could be reborn. Even dragons rose from ash, the tales said. She slept fitful, dreaming of wildfire tendrils coiling through the sea, igniting waves into pillars of green gold. She awoke at dawn slick with sweat, heart racing. Outside, ravens cawed. Their wings oversaw the slow procession west along Rosby Road to the Trident Fork. Messages rode faster. Ravens bearing news of her exile to lords of Riverrun, Seaguard, Old Town, even Sunspear. She imagined Doran Martell's smile. Let him plot. Let them all. A lion's roar carries far, even torn. On the fifth night, a storm broke. Hail hammered tents. Winds toppled pines. Guards cursed the cold. In her pavilion, Cersei paced while torches sputtered. She felt the rocks pull like a tide, but the road stretched endless. She thought of Jaime sleeping beside Tommen's chamber, golden hand resting on sword hilt. She thought of dreamless years yawning between them. A sudden crack. A pine fell upon a tent, crushing two Vale squires asleep inside. Panic rippled. Horses whinnied. Cersei emerged, hair whipping, and saw the sigil on the crushed canvas. Winged falcon. The sight of broken bird under snow triggered a laugh sharp as sleet. Nature struck without choosing sides. She helped haul limp bodies free, feeling blood warm her gloves. Knights stared at her, some in respect, others wary. She understood then. A queen may be cast out, but a lioness in snow still commands awe. After funerals of pine smoke, the escort pressed on. The storm passed, leaving icy stars. In their wake came hush and frost so thick it gleamed blue at dawn. They saw wolves pacing ridgelines, eyes lantern bright. One night a pack's howl drifted across camp, harmonizing with the noonday memory of bells. Beyond antlers they crossed burned villages black with soot and glassy with ice. Cersei learned they were torched by Gregor's riders months past, though snow now masked bones. She ordered bread shared with survivors huddled in hovels. Some knights balked, but she insisted. Fear buys silence, bread buys loyalty, she told her steward, a former Rosby sergeant who avoided her gaze. The gesture cost little. The bread might have spoiled by Riverrun, and in the telling perhaps her name would soften. After 3 weeks the convoy crested a ridge overlooking the rush. There, banners bearing a red lion against Golden Field awaited. Lannister men under Ser Davin, her cousin. He rode to greet her, helm under his arm, cheeks ruddy from cold and drink. "Lady Cersei," he declared loudly, signaling to escort. "Your rock stands ready." Davin's smile faltered when Vale and Reach Knights insisted on accompanying her past the border. She interceded. "My kin shall see me home. Your oaths are fulfilled." After tense negotiation they agreed. 20 neutral lances would ride to Lannisport, remain quartered aboard their ships until word confirmed her house kept peace. The moment they turned south, relief cut through the convoy like sun through mist. Davin escorted her west along the Gold Road, through foothills dusted white. He spoke of mines still turning profit, of bannermen grumbling under taxes for wars they never chose, of Lannisport guilds petitioning for more bread ships. She listened, nodding, cataloging every grievance. Each was a blade she might later wield. They reached the rock at sunset. The massive promontory reared from the sea, lion shape in silhouette. Lanterns studded its flank like gold dapple. The scent of brine me, gled with chimney smoke. As her litter climbed corkscrew roads hewn into stone, memories flooded. Running corridors with Jaime, wrestling Tyrion between statues, Tywin's stern lectures. The rock's gates opened. She stepped onto familiar cobbles. Servants bowed stiffly, eyes flicking to Vale Knights behind. She walked alone through archways into the great hall where her father once held court. Banners still hung but dust-shrouded. Torches sputtered. Echoes swallowed footsteps. In Tywin's carved high seat sat an old lion, her uncle Jenna's son, Ser Alton, drafted by lords to hold the seat in her exile. He rose, bowed. "Lady Cersei, welcome home." She smiled pleasantly. Home indeed. She gestured to the shadows beyond the hearth, where the gold veins of rock glinted. We have much to discuss. The Vale captain issued final orders, placing 20 seasoned men at key passages. Their presence pricked her pride, but she let them. She would tame them later. That night, she walked the battlements alone. The sea crashed far below, white foam ghosts in moonlight. Stars wheeled overhead. She envisioned ships bearing grain into Lannisport, banners of lion and stag intertwined. A promise Tommen might yet visit. She pictured forging alliances anew. Letters to Tarth, Reach, even Dorne, offering trade, marriages, mercy. Mercy cost less than war and paid dividends longer. Yet beneath those plans coiled darker serpents, hidden wildfire caches mapped by Qyburn before exile, smugglers willing to run dragonglass from Dragonstone, rumor of a mummer's dragon in Esso's stirring talk of Blackfire claims. All threads, all possible snares for enemies. A gull cried. She closed her eyes, breathing salt air. Her children's faces glimmered. Joffrey's wild grin, Myrcella's shy dimples, Tommen's soft cheeks. If she could keep one alive, perhaps the toll would be worth everything. Snow began to fall again. Slow, silent, settling on her shoulders like the fingers of unseen ghosts. She did not move until the flakes melted on her lashes. At length she whispered to the sea, "A lioness in winter still hunts." The wind carried her words away, out across the dark waves where the horizon disappeared. Somewhere beyond, distant fires glowed. King's Landing's braziers, Dragonstone's forge, Winterfell's hearths. The realm shifted like ice over deep water. And in the hush between crashing surf she thought she heard a bell, faint and far. Neither derision nor doom, but perhaps a beginning. She turned toward the rock's interior. Behind her, the snow traced a single set of footprints, vanishing lines, soon to be swallowed by the gathering night. The moon rose late, a thin sickle of horned light cleaving the western clouds as Casterly Rock settled into uneasy slumber. Even at night, the fortress breathed. Chain winches groaned from deep sluice shafts. Sea wind keened through lion maws carved along the cliff face, and somewhere in Lower Warren's miners still chipped quartz veins in hopes of striking a new seam of Orym. Yet for all its life, the rock felt hollow to Cersei. An immense skull of bygone power, magnificent and half-remembered, waiting to be filled with purpose once more. She paced the long gallery above the sea gate, a cape of sable wolf fur draped over her shoulders against the gnaw of winter's salt-sharp air. Lanterns swung on iron hooks, their light sliding across mosaics of triumphant Lannisters dating back to bright Lorien Eye. Even his gilded phantom seemed to watch her with skeptical amusement. Her breath plumed in pale gusts. Each exhale crystallized the lingering taste of sweet summer wine she'd savored earlier. A single cup drawn from Tywin's private cellar. One cup only. Clarity mattered now more than comfort. Below, the tide advanced with relentless patience, crashing against the basalt pilings of the sea granaries. Every seventh wave foamed higher, throwing spray onto lower embrasures. Cersei watched the endless cycle, tasting the salt on the wind, and envisioned her own return to power as just such a tide. Receding now, but destined to rise and claim the shore. Footsteps echoed at the corridor's far end. Measured, booted, too deliberate for a servant. She did not turn until the figure halted a respectful distance behind. "Lady Cersei." Ser Alton's voice carried a hint of apology beneath the polish of court formality. "You asked to see tonight's accountings." She pivoted slowly. In torchlight, Alton's gold-stitched doublet made him seem younger than his 40-odd years, but the tremor in the rolled parchment he offered betrayed nerves. The Vale Guard's presence unnerved them all. No point denying. "Leave them on the table," she said, indicating a marble console beneath a statue of Lady Joanna. Alton obeyed, spared one glance at the dark sea, and lingered. "You need something?" Cersei asked. "A word, if it please you." He glanced over his shoulder, verifying they were alone. "The garrison is unsettled. Lord Royce's men drill every dawn in the upper ward and dine apart from ours. I fear sparks." Cersei allowed a smile, thin as a whetted blade. Sparks light fires, cousin. Let them spark. But a clash would give Royce reason to bring more men, perhaps even replace me as Castellan. Only if we lose, she murmured, relishing Alton's quick swallow. She stepped toward him, closing the distance until she smelled the faint musk of iron polish on his gloves. You served my father faithfully. Serve me as well, and no Royce will strip the lion banners from these walls. I've no patience for meekness, cousin. Alton dropped his gaze. Your will, my lady. Good. Tomorrow, double the rations to the West Barracks. Tell the men it's from my own larders. And find which Vale sergeants gamble after dark. Offer them arbor red. Wine loosens tongues and sword arms alike. The Castellan inclined his head. As you command. And Alton. She brushed her fingers along his sleeve. Smile more. We are not conquered guests, we are hosts. When he departed, Cersei returned to the balustrade. She could feel the rock's pulse. Discontent, greed, resentment, proud memory. It all waited to be shaped. She would coddle some, frighten others, purchase a few. But before she could bend the rock to her schemes, she needed eyes beyond its walls. She withdrew a small bronze whistle from her sleeve, pursed her lips, and blew a faint triple note. The sound barely carried above surf, yet within moments a shadow detached from an archway. Qyburn, robed in gray, hood up. He bowed with exaggerated flourish. My lady calls, I skitter, he said, voice low and amused. Come, she beckoned. Tell me the raven's answers. They moved into a side chamber where a sconce burned low over a cluttered map table. Qyburn laid out rolled scrolls tied with twine, each bearing broken seals. The Kraken of Pike, the Stallion of Bravo's Iron Bank, the skull of the Second Sons, more besides. As suspected, the former maester began, smoothing one parchment. The Golden Company will not cross without hefty promise. They claim old duties in Essos still pay better than our uncertain coin. Gold trims uncertainty, Cersei said. The rock's veins run deep. They want more than your gold. They want a throne. Qyburn's brows lifted. They dream of putting a Blackfire pretender on the Red Keep's perch. I hinted we might indulge a false claim, long enough for them to bleed Shireen's armies. Afterwards, accidents happen. Cersei tapped the map where the narrow sea narrowed near Driftmark. And the Iron Bank? Neutral for now. They will weigh safety over revenge. Pay the next quarter on time and they'll hold breath. He unrolled a thinner scrap. From King's Landing, a covert friend says Lord Tyrell pushes grain relief, but storms block the gullet. Your brother struggles to keep order with skeleton patrols. A flicker beneath her ribs. Jaime. She pictured him pacing ramparts, cloak whipping, every petitioner urging compromise. She almost pitied him, almost. Let him juggle catapults and breed riots, she said. Our task is here. She pointed to the line of crimson ink Qyburn had drawn along the rills. Who rides from Seaguard? Blackwood levies under Lady Bethany. She distrusts Vale oversight. Leans toward us if we promise debts forgiven from Stone Mill. Send her ravens of pardon. Cersei's eyes narrowed. And what of Lord Clegane? Qyburn's smile thinned. Sandor lives, they say, on the Quiet Isle. A dog turned monk. But stray dogs can bite when memory of bone returns. Forget him. She swept parchment aside, revealing the Kraken seal. This matters. What says Euron? Qyburn hesitated. He offers ships and chaos. In return, he wants your hand and the rock's mines. And he cleared his throat. He wants a dragon. A dragon. She laughed. Does the crows I think them ripe on trees? He claims to have secret ways to snare one, Valyrian horns, old sorceries. Perhaps myth. Or madness. Cersei drummed fingers. But a mad ally disturbs sane foes. She considered long gaze roaming torch shadows. Write him thus. Dragon or no, he may dock in Lannisport under my protection. I shall weigh his suit once he delivers sails to our cause. As you wish. Qyburn bowed, licking parchment with quick strokes of quill. Wax hissed beneath the signet stamp of the lion. Cersei dismissed him. Alone, She leaned over Tywin's old map table, where pins marked castles and supply depots like bright nails in a coffin lid. She moved 2 crimson pins from Casterly Rock toward the Trident, bridging distance. The line looked fragile, dwarfing compared to clusters of blue falcon pins representing Vale garrisons. But she had patience. She would gnaw the falcon's talons one by one. Far off, thunder rumbled across the sunset sea. She straightened, listening. Storms rolled nightly now, winter's savage heralds. Yet the rumble felt portentous. A giant's drum, distant but drawing near. King's Landing dreamt fitfully beneath snow-flecked night. In the ruined square where the September of Baelor once loomed, work crews hacked brittle marble, loading chunks onto wagons for seawall repairs. Piles of charred timber formed makeshift barricades around open craters to deter scavengers from plummeting into caverns where wildfire still pooled in glassy puddles. Every third bell, a priestess of the Red Temple walked the site chanting for cleansing flame. Every third bell after, septons of the 7 fired prayers that sounded suspiciously like curses. No one agreed which gods ruled the ashes. High above, in the White Sword Tower, Jaime Lannister stood alone on the wind-lashed balcony, cloak snapping around him like a wounded banner. Snow gathered in the crook of his golden hand, melting into rivulets that trickled down the crafted fingers. He let it drip unchecked, eyes fixed on Flea Bottom's maze of rooftops where chimney smoke twisted white against dark. Footsteps behind. He did not turn. Ser Jaime, Davos Seaworth greeted, voice carried by wind. Should be inside. Bitter cold for old wounds. Jaime's remaining hand flexed on the balustrade. Old wounds never mind new cold. Davos stepped beside him, breath fogging. Council meets at dawn. Grain wagons from Duskendale delayed again. Archmaester Belgrave claims rats chew half the sacks. Rats and corrupt captains, Jaime muttered. Same teeth. The smuggler knight grinned. I've known both. He sobered. Your sister's ships harry the narrow sea, privateers flying false flags. Lords complain their sons vanish between Dragonstone and Maidenpool. Jaime frowned. Proof? Not yet, but whispers smell of lion. Jaime looked eastward where the Blackwater met night. If she strikes merchant lanes, King's Landing starves faster. Unless we strike back. Davos offered a rolled map. Lord Valerion proposes escort fleets. Jaime accepted, scanning ink routes. Thick lines traced convoys. Dotted lines marked danger zones. Memories stirred. He once loved the sea's edge view from the Red Keep's high bays, seeing myriad sails like scraps of parchment, distant, harmless. Now each sail carried hunger or war. How fares the boy? Davos asked quietly. Tommen sleeps. I read him tales of Aegon's conquest. A wry smile. He asked why dragons obeyed some kings and not others. And what did you answer? Dragons obey no one. Only fear keeps them near. Davos fell silent, watching snow dance between parapets. Ser Jaime, he said after a time. I served many kings, Robert, Stannis, now his daughter. But each believed rule meant bending others. Shireen's way is different. She seeks to lift. Easier to break sticks than raise a beam, but a roof shields more souls. Jaime tilted his head. A smuggler turned lord speaks of carpentry. Davos chuckled. We build if we wish dry heads. He faced Jaime. The city needs you, not merely as sword, as hope. Your oath has weight. Use it at council. Push for grain, for justice, for calm. Let lion hearts learn to purr. Jaime's gaze drifted to the dark rubble of the September. Purring lions still have claws. Yet he nodded. Davos departed, leaving the Kingsguard alone with swirling snow and the steady ache of loss. Jaime closed eyes, breathing frost. He pictured Cersei alone at the rock, stubborn flame in winter gloom. He felt the bond still but thinner, like a fraying rope across a chasm. Duty tugged at one end, love at the other. Somewhere between, his soul dangled. In the Vale menagerie of airy-trained ravens, a black-winged bird with red flecks took flight, carrying a scroll stamped with a lion biting a fish. It bore westward over river forks choked by ice pans, across foothills where discontent brewed among petty lords fatigued by winter levies. The message promised pardon, debt forgiveness, and a seat at Lion's Court. Lady Bethany Blackwood read it thrice before dawn, then summoned her captains. Visitors in crimson cloaks were seen 2 days later riding into Blackwood Vale. Each raven's flight changed fates. One flew to 10 Towers, enticing House Harlaw to consider privateering contracts. Another to Tarth, seeking a marriage for an exiled cousin of the lioness. But the most dangerous raven never reached its perch. Heavy winds forced it to land at Maidenpool's rookery, where Maester Brindon, loyal to Shireen, opened its tube. He found the parchment addressed to His Majesty King Tommen, rightful scion of Robert Baratheon. And within, "Mother misses you. I dream nightly of your smile. Send word through the pious boy who brings you bread. The world will soon be safe, my sweet cub." That night Brindon sent duplicate copies to the Red Keep, the Vale, and Old Town. By morning, rumors of secret letters between mother and son buzzed through the capital like wasps. Jaime confronted Tommen in his solar overlooking Maegor's holdfast. The boy's cheeks flushed when Jaime displayed the letter. "I only wanted," Tommen's lip quivered. Mother said she had news of Ser Pounce. Jaime knelt, taking Tommen's trembling hands. "I know you miss her, but these letters might be traps. People around you will twist them to claim she seeks your abduction." Tommen's eyes widened. "Abduction?"
Ehagd Ser Pounce Taiter.
The orange cat flicked its tail, indifferent to politics. "I won't let that happen." Jaime reached for quill and parchment. "Write her. Tell her you are well. Nothing more that can be bent to treason." He hesitated, then added, "Tell her you love her." Tommen wrote, tears spotting the page. When finished, Jaime folded it but hesitated to seal. Instead, he tucked it into his breast pocket to show Davos and the council first. Honor required such betrayal. At Casterly, rock dawn seeped through narrow windows, painting gold veins in the quarried walls. Cersei sat at Tywin's desk, boots propped on oak, reading replies. Bethany Blackwood hinted at support if protection came swift. Lord Harlaw demanded proof of payment. The Iron Bank politely thanked her for partial remittance. Euron's letter, however, thrilled her. Scrawled mad poetry promising storms, a dragon horn called Dragonbinder, and iron vengeance. He would sail to Lannisport soon, he claimed, on a kraken's tide and a witch's whisper. She tapped quill against teeth, amused. If Euron truly possessed Dragonbinder, she might hold the only riderless dragon soon to roam. Reports from Pentos told of Daenerys Targaryen's beasts across the narrow sea. Rage burned. Yet another pretender queen with fire. But if Euron could cage a dragon and gift it to her son, perhaps. The realm's fear would pivot. She penned acceptance, sealed with gold wax, and sent ravens west. Later, she walked the armories inspecting catapults Tywin had ordered refurbished decades earlier. Wheels creaked, iron arms sagged. But with new sinew and proper carpenters, they would hurl stones still. "Repair them all," she commanded the master-at-arms, "and triple our arrow stores." Randall Hill, the master-at-arms, a square-jawed bastard of Lannister blood, frowned. "Castles secure enough, milady. Castles fall to coin and cunning," she replied. "I'll have walls bristling." Randall bowed. "As you will." From armory she descended to miners' galleries. Lanterns gleamed on quartz. The air smelled of wet stone and sweat. She met Foreman Hethen, a burly man missing 2 fingers. He knelt awkwardly. "How deep now?" she asked. "Another 20 feet struck bright flecks," he said. "Hammer struck good or my lady. Double shifts. Pay with fresh bread and salt cod. We need gold faster." She let her knuckles brush a raw vein glittering under oil light. Gold felt warm beneath her glove, like fate pulsing. "Bread scarce," Hethen warned. "Winter caravans slow." Cersei smiled. "Bread will come." She thought of Euron's fleet, of merchant ships bearing grain seized at sea. Back above ground, she visited the rookery. Maester Jarman, a graybeard she trusted little, waddled forward. "Your letters fly swift, my lady. Ensure swift replies, she said. Any word from the capital? A curious raven this morn. Jarman produced a parchment bearing the hand seal. Inside, Jaime's handwriting summarized the intercepted letter incident. He insisted no harm to Tommen would be tolerated. He asked again for peace. Cersei's heart hammered. She read between lines. Council watched her still. Any hint of plot might brand her open traitor. She burned Jaime's parchment over a brazier, smoke curling sweet. That night she dreamt of sea storms illuminated by green flame, of dragon wings blotting sun, of her father's cold voice asking, "What have you learned?" She answered in dream that fear bends knees. But Tywin only turned to salt and blew apart on wind. She woke at dawn, skin slick, mind sharp. Plans needed acceleration. Euron Greyjoy's silence slipped into Lannisport Harbor like a black dagger 2 weeks later. Sails crimson with kraken silhouettes. Fog cloaked his arrival. Bells rang alarm, but harbor guards held by Alton's order let one ship through. Cersei watched from Western Bastion as the war galley carved water. No drum cadence, only hush. Figureheads of shrieking women lined its prow, tongues carved from ruby. When it moored, crew filed onto dock. Men with filed teeth, women in eelskin armor, silent thralls blinded by sewn lids. Euron appeared last, cloak of black feathers sweeping, belt dripping rubies, eye patch covering left socket. He knelt upon the pier, grand theatrics, and stretched arms wide toward the rock. "Bright lioness," he cried, voice rolling across bay. "Your kraken comes bearing storms." Rumors spread before he reached the gates, that his patch hid a sapphire burning with sorcery, that he carried a horn bee, ound in Valyrian glyphs said to slay anyone but him when blown. When Cersei granted audience in the Sea Hall, Euron strode with swagger, flanked by 2 mute priests in oily black robes. "You summon me?" Cersei said from the high-tide carved throne, legs crossed, rubies at her throat glinting. "Show your worth." Euron flourished a bundle, a long, curved horn banded in red gold, glyphs glowing faintly. "Dragonbinder," he announced, the fires of Valyria quenched to song within. He brushed fingers along runes. "Blow it and dragons heed, or so the myth says. Of course," he added, grin sly. "The last 3 men who tried burned from the inside. Charming." Cersei descended steps, hand resting on sword pommel she wore for effect. Up close, Euron smelled of sea brine infused with spice and something darker. "I care less for charred lungs than for results. Can you bring me a dragon?" "In time," he said, "but ships I bring now." 50 swift longships hidden beyond Fair Isle, crews starved for plunder. "Give me warrant to raid Tyrell granaries, and the reach bleeds bread." Cersei considered. Starving kings landing further served her, but too bold a move risked uniting lords against her. She needed delicate pressure, enough to fracture alliances, not forge them. "Raid only those bearing Shireen's banners," she ordered, "and leave peasantry alive. I want fear, not corpses. Bring spoils here. You'll receive gold weight for weight." Euron bowed, eyes gleaming like wet onyx. A dance of hunger and dread. How your father would applaud. He raised the horn. "With your blessing, I test this when next dragon wings darken sky." "Dragons do not cross the sea lightly," she said. Euron's smile widened. "Then we lure one with blood." He turned away smooth as silk, leaving dread in his wake. That night, feasting in the rock's ancient banquet hall, Euron regaled lesser lords with ribald tales. Cersei watched him charm, threaten, coax. She saw fear yield to fascination. A storm god, this one. Unpredictable, but storms can wreck fleets or drive them to shore. After revels, he sought her in a candlelit gallery overlooking surf. "You and I," he whispered, stepping close, "are cut from same cloth, black sails to their gold banners. Let others kneel to sparrows. We'll teach the realm a darker prayer." She met his gaze unflinching. "I wrote the prayer. You'll whisper it." He laughed low, eyes dancing. "Then let us roar our amen." Perhaps she might have yielded to his kiss, drunk on power and wine, but a door creaked behind. Lady Jenna, startled, curtsied. Euron retreated with theatrical bow. Jenna's eyes tracked him until he vanished into shadow. "A dangerous man," Jenna murmured. "A useful man," Cersei corrected. Her aunt studied her. "Your father once said, 'The lion who shares the hunt with the hyena grows lean.'" Cersei shrugged. "The hyena cleans bones the lion ignores. Together they feast." Jenna sighed, ancient sadness in the sound. Cersei walked past her, cloak flowing. Across snow-blanked fields south of Rosby, a small band of knights in snow-dusted scarlet met a cloaked figure bearing a black and bronze shield, the sigil of House Blackwood. Bethany Blackwood herself, cheeks flushed wild, greeted them. They presented her with 2 heavy chests, gold lions stacked among silver stags. In exchange, she signed a pact pledging 2,000 archers at first thaw to the rightful Queen Mother's cause. Wordless agreements followed. If Cersei's banner rose, smaller lords in the rills would join. The knights vanished north by dawn. Such smaller deals rippled. Heatherspoon, Goodbrook, Liddon, Sarsfield, names of lesser weight, but way to cruise. In King's Landing, meanwhile, rumors of lions plotting swept taverns. Shireen's regency enacted curfews, posted proclamations declaring loyalty crimes punishable by loss of tongue. Bread lines lengthened. Tyrell wagons delayed by Euron's fleet meant rations halved. Sparrows, those who survived, preached that mothers' sins return upon sons. Tommen listened from barred windows, shaking. Marjorie Tyrell returned from Brightwater Keep, escorted by 100 household knights. She petitioned council for audience with the king. Jaime allowed, though Davos warned. Marjorie knelt before Tommen, hands folded. "My husband," she said softly. "I bring grain from Highgarden's hidden stores, enough for 2 moons." Tommen's eyes brightened, but Davos asked, "What seeks Highgarden in return?" Marjorie smiled demure, though steel hid beneath. "Only that justice remains swift for treason." A jab at Cersei. Council accepted grain. Crowds cheered Tyrell colors as wagons rolled through city gates. But some whispered that lions would starve so roses might bloom. Snowdrifts on Casterly Rock towered waist-deep when Qyburn found Cersei in the solar feeding a hawk perched on Gauntlet. The bird, Ghost, she named it for pale gray plumage, snatched raw rabbit morsel. Qyburn bowed. "Word from Pike," he said. "Euron raids Stepstones already. Tyrell vessels burning. He sends proof." He produced a severed sail corner emblazoned with golden rose, edges scorched. Cersei stroked Ghost's feathers. "Tyrells will howl." She pictured Marjorie's politic smile, Olenna's calculating eyes. "And from the east," Qyburn continued, "Daenerys stormborn marches toward Meereen with Thracian hordes. Initial scouts say her dragons grow monstrous." "Good," Cersei said. "Let dragons devour Essos, fewer sellswords for Shireen." A raucous cry from the hawk pierced air. Cersei released the bird. It flapped to open window, soared into snow-cloud sky. She watched until gray blurred with white. "What of my nephew?" she asked quietly. Tommen's letters sparse, censored. "Likely, but he lives healthy." Cersei exhaled. "Keep watcher ravens on the city. If they dare move him from Red Keep, I want hours' notice." Qyburn inclined head. "I have other tidings. Our miners discovered a hidden passage your father sealed. Leads to catacombs where wildfire casks from Maegor's reign remain stable. Fire her faithful ally. Quantity, enough to make the Bay of Crabs boil." Qyburn's grin stretched. "We test small flasks. Stable, potent. Store secure," she commanded. "No accidents until time ripe." Her mind raced. Wildfire to arm Euron's ships, to ignite blockades, or to threaten capital. Yet wildfire alone could not retake throne. Hearts and swords would. She must step onto stage soon, or risk being overshadowed by dragons and queens. That night she convened a feast for Western lords. The sea hall brimmed with venison, trout, root pies, and casks of strong ale. Men and women toasted the lion. Euron played lute beside a salt wife with voice like broken glass. Cersei rose, goblet raised. My lords, my ladies, the realm staggers beneath winter, famine, and false shepherds. The rock thrives. And none answered save frost. Cersei paced Tywin's study, hearing wind whistle through cracked shutters. Ghost her hawk perched silent, eyes gold coins in dark. She opened window, sea roared below. She spoke aloud, voice swallowed by gloom. Father, what would you do? Silence replied. She answered herself, crush them quick. But winter slowed hammers. Dragons loomed. She felt edges closing. At Dragonstone, Daenerys received ravens. Cersei's alliance with Euron threatens coastal trade. Greyjoy longships ravage Tyrell convoys. Tyrion urged swift strike. Jon Snow, arrived seeking dragonglass, advised caution. Winter wars kill more than swords. Daenerys weighed. In war council, Grey Worm lay maps. Rock vulnerable from sea caves, he reported. Unprotected by scorpions. Tyrion confirmed secret tunnels. Daenerys decided, we end lioness here. Drogon will melt her rock. But first parley, give chance to bend knee. Messengers dispatched across winter sea bearing dragon sigil banners. Many vessels lost to storm. One arrived at Lannisport Harbor. Vale Knights escorted envoy through suspicious crowds to Sea Hall. Cersei listened, expression unreadable, as envoy read decree. Bend the knee, yield crown to rightful queen, face fair trial, or face dragonfire. She smiled thin. Tell your queen lions do not kneel. They rule or die. Envoy departed warily. That night, Euron prepared fleets for defense. Catapults loaded wildfire eggs. Cersei addressed war council beneath flickering torches. Dragons bleed. Scorpions, iron bolts, wildfire. They will taste death. Lords nodded half-hearted. Alton's jaw clenched. Jenna wept quietly. Snow battered ramparts. Roaring sea answered. In gloom, Lioness plotted final stand. In King's Landing, Tommen recovered slowly, voice raspy. He played with Ser Pounce near hearth. Jaime watched, thinking of approaching storm. Ravens reported Daenerys' ultimatum. Council argued. Should they ally with Dragon Queen against Lioness? Some lords pledged early. Jaime weighed blood and duty. At dusk he stood before Shireen. If dragons burn the rock, my sister dies. But so may thousands. We must intervene. Seek surrender. Shireen nodded solemn. Send envoys. Promise mercy if gates open before flame. Jaime would escort them. He prepared again to sail into storm. Far north at Winterfell, banners fluttered. Direwolf, Merman, Flayed Man, Hornwood Moose. Houses summoned by Sansa Stark and Queen Shireen's request to fortify realm against undead rumors. Ravens arriving described whites sighted beyond wall. War of living overshadowed War of Thrones. Yet south, thrones still beckon steel. Spring's first red dawn lit Casterly Rock with blood-hued glow. On horizon, black sails of Euron's fleet formed jagged line. Beyond, faint as cloud, maroon sails of unsullied transports approached, dragons circling high. Cersei stood on seaward wall, wind whipping hair. She wore scale-embossed crimson armor, rubies blazing. Ghost the hawk perched on her brace. Below, soldiers scurried, loading scorpions, aligning catapults. Qyburn supervised wildfire crates rolled onto ballistic carriages. In distance, Drogon roared, a sound that shook marrow. Seagulls scattered. Euron's horn call echoed, low, resonant. Not Dragonbinder yet, but signal to ready. Cersei drew sword, Valyrian steel gift from Tywin. She raised it, voice ringing across battlements. This is our rock. We are lions. Dragons bleed like any beast. Bleed them. Cheers erupted, though tinged with fear. She felt heart hammer, heat flood veins. She thought of Tommen's smile, Joffrey's laughter, Myrcella's dimples, Jaime's kiss. All ghosts whispered. She steeled. A shadow darkened sun.
Drogon dove, mouth glowing amber red.
Catapults loosed. Wildfire eggs arced, trailing green vapor. One struck sea near Dragon, geyser of emerald fury. Drogon banked wide. A second egg burst too far, but dragons closed. Euron on flagship silence raised Dragonbinder. He inhaled, set horn to lips.
Rune bands glowed.
He blew. Sound like tearing worlds erupted, deep, shrieking, metallic. Men clapped hands to ears. Some bled. Cersei felt bones vibrate. Ghost shrieked, flapping wildly. Drogon faltered mid-air, eyes blazing orange. The scream echoed. Euron blew again. Flames flickered along horn, licking his arm. Crew collapsed, smoke streaming from noses. Cersei watched, fascinated and horrified. Drogon turned, toward the horn's call. Black wings stirred hurricane, but other dragons, regal, Viserion, swooped to flank, confused. Unsullied ships wheeled. Cersei signaled. Scorpions fired. Bolts hissed skyward. One pierced Viserion's flank. Orange flame burst. Dragon shrieked, but stayed aloft. Then Drogon unleashed breath. Not upon the rock, but down upon Euron's silence. Dragon drawn to horn's agony. White-hot fire engulfed deck. Euron laughed amid flame, horn's third note trembling, until pyre consumed him. Silence exploded. Dragonbinder cracked, fragments pelting sea. Drogon soared upward, freed, trailing smoke. He roared, turning eyes back to fortress. Cersei whispered, "Well played, Kraken." She raised sword anew. Dragons dove together, mouths ablaze. Scorpions reloaded. Ballistae released. Some shafts struck scale, others missed. Wildfire eggs launched. One met Dragonflame in midair. Explosion of emerald and red-lit sky like dawn of gods. Burning droplets rained on walls. Soldiers screamed as green fire consumed flesh. Hawk-like ghost-caught flame spiraled into sea. Cersei held ground. Heat blistered skin through mail. She felt ribs tremor with roar. Atop highest turret, Qyburn directed archers. A dragon's fire swept. Qyburn vanished in inferno, experiments lost. Below, ships of unsullied landed troops at harbor. Vale knights inside keep refused arms. Some opened gates to spare slaughter. Battle raged in corridors. Cersei descended to Great Hall, intent to rally. But Alton awaited, sword lowered. "Enough," he pleaded. "The rock falls." She slapped him with gauntlet. "Coward." He blocked next blow. "For our people," he said softly and knelt, offering sword. Tears blurred her sight. She saw through them Tywin's ghost shaking head in disappointment. Outside, bells rang far, distant, mocking. Dragons circled. Cersei stumbled to rampart, hair singed, armor scorched. She saw unsullied banners ascending. She saw Drogon land on bastion, talons crunching stone. Daenerys Targaryen dismounted, silver hair whipping. Tyrion stood beside her, eyes shadowed. Cersei lifted sword, though hand shook. Daenerys approached, unspeaking. They faced. "I warned you," Dragon Queen said. "A lion bows to none." Cersei's voice cracked. "Then die proud." Daenerys raised hand. But Tyrion stepped forward. "Wait, let her see him," he gestured. Unsullied brought Tommen, cloaked, thin. Jaime followed, chains on wrists but head high. Cersei's sword clattered. "Tommen," the boy ran to her, weeping. She held him, tears steaming on scorched cheeks. Jaime knelt, eyes meeting hers, regret, love. Daenerys watched, expression hard yet tinged with pity. "Bend now, live to raise him." Cersei looked into son's eyes, fear, hope. She looked at black dragon looming. Pride ward grief, but mother's love won. She sank to knees, pulling Tommen with. "The rock kneels," she whispered. Dragons roared triumph. Snow, ash, and embers mingled, falling upon bowed heads. In distance, ocean-battered cliffs, tireless tide washing blood and fire into endless churn. The realm would reshape in dragon's shadow, but somewhere within roar and blaze, a lioness heartbeat still thudded slow, stubborn, waiting for next rise.